This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. This is the Fast Break Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Anderson. Alongside me, as always, is Ricky Widmer.
What's up, guys?
And Dave Oster.
Hey, everybody.
And this week we are ranking the starting NBA point guards for the 2017-2018
and so
season.
It begins.
Yes.
So it begins.
Finally, we get back to the absolute madness that is calling us idiots because we ranked your point guard lower than you think.
Yes. So we will get into this. We're going to do point guards, shooting guards, small forwards, power forwards, I'll say point forwards, centers, coaches, and six men. And then we're going to take all of those, put them in one, and give you team rankings from that. We did it last year. Like Dave said, there was a lot of kickback because we used Real GM, and Real GM didn't have the update depth chart. We went away from Real GM. We got it going. We think we got the right point guards for this. So if you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much. We're going to be splitting these up into 3 segments. If you're on Blog Talk Radio, thank you so much for downloading us. You're going to get the whole thing in its entirety. So let's jump in, boys. 30 through 21. Let's kick it off. Coming in at 30, we got Frank of the New York Knicks.
Not going to try to say the last name, are you?
No, Frank the Kid Lion.
That was not bad. You just say it quick enough, nobody will question it.
Yeah. So I'll just say Frank. Yep. I listened to so many videos of him saying his last name.
And you still can't say it.
Of announcers pronouncing his name, I can't get it down. 29, we got Chris Dunn of the Chicago Bulls. 28, we got Tony Parker. We'll explain why these rankings are in just a little bit. We're just running through it. 28, Tony Parker. 27, Jamal Murray of the Denver Nuggets. We got 26, Darren Collison of now the Indiana Pacers. 25, we got Reggie Jackson of the Detroit Pistons. 24, we got Malcolm Brogdon of the Milwaukee Bucks. 23, we got Elfrid Payton of the Orlando Magic. 22, we got Ricky Rubio of now the Utah Jazz. And 21, rounding out this segment, we got Pat Bev now of the Los Angeles Clippers. So jumping in out of this, boys, who's the biggest surprise? Who's really low, who's really high, anything here?
I think the guy we have to start with is from last year to this year, our biggest faller of Reggie Jackson, who fell 14 spots from last year to this year.
Oh, man.
He was
14 spots.
He was 11 last year. So let's put that. He was 11. Some of that ranking was because of the crazy playoff run that the Pistons did have. 4 close games against the Cavaliers. And
we thought it'd be the same.
They looked like they were a young and up-and-coming team. I had them in the playoffs. I think I had them as a top 5 team in the Eastern Conference. And he just lost his ability to create.
Yeah, I mean,
completely.
He had a terrible year. I mean, he went from almost 19 points a game down to 14. He played only 52 games this past year. Shooting, he got worse.
Injured.
Yeah. I mean, across the board, it just went down for him. And that was a guy where, up to that point, he'd been going up the last 3 seasons. Where up, and it looked like he's in his own. We know he's a little bit of a selfish player, but that's fine. We can work with that in the NBA. That's point guards. That's fine. But then just all of a sudden, this Detroit team. It was this isn't working. And we're watching it happen over the season. It was oh, this is getting worse. Oh, this is going really bad.
Yeah.
I got to look away.
And it was something, too, where the offense just didn't flow well.
No.
And you can look at all the stats, and the stats won't tell the exact story because you look at it. He took less shots. Yes, he played less minutes. He did have a decline in assists.
A decline
in assists going from 6.2 to 5.2. But then again, he had less minutes. And then you also look at the turnovers. Again, 2.8 going down to 2.2. You look at the numbers and you just say, oh, well, he played less minutes, so that's why you see his numbers declining. But you look at the way that the Pistons performed when he was leading this offense, and they just looked like a completely different team, and they didn't look right out there. And that's why there was trade rumors for Ricky Rubio possibly going to Detroit. And then people were looking to ship Reggie Jackson out there because the chemistry just wasn't there between the whole team. Stan Van really didn't have his magic, and Reggie Jackson fell. And not saying that he doesn't have any promise. Again, he's still 27 years old. We've seen the promise before in Reggie, but right now he sits at 25, and it's just because of his selfish play, his really lack of ability to create. And there's not really there's definitely hope for him, but I don't know really what we're gonna expect.
No, I mean,
from the
I feel
Pistons
like he's one more season away from becoming a 6th man in my mind.
Really?
That's the role I can see him falling to. It's just at this point in the NBA, the 6th man as a generalization of the role is a scorer. It's a spark plug off the bench. It's someone to get your offense going. And usually it's not someone who's a full-time creator. It's not someone who can run the offense for an entire game. And that's exactly what I see with Reggie.
Well, and that was the place that he wanted to leave. He wanted to leave OKC because he was a 6th man backing up Russ Westbrook.
Exactly.
Obviously, he's not getting past that stone wall. So then, now he goes to Detroit. Had a really nice season, and this season just fell off.
I'm taking it into injury, though, because, what you just said, he had to play with Russell Westbrook with being the backup point guard behind Russ. Probably isn't the easiest job if that's a job that you want someday in the NBA. And I mean, besides for last season, 17.6, 18.8 were the averages, and we just saw lower numbers this year. I'm looking at it more so of he was injured. Let's see how this one goes and how bad his numbers were with the injury. If you look at his per for last year, he was ranked out of all the point guards, he was ranked at 27. And then if you look at his value added to a team, which is how much value do you add over a guy who would be the 12th man on your roster, he was 29th of all the point guards, and that was all starters and backup point guards for last year.
Yeah, and usually looking at per, if you're around 15, that means you're an average NBA player. He was a little under 15, 0.06 under 15. Yeah. So he was an average player last year. He was nothing special. And with point guards,
felt almost like a net negative out there when you watch them play. And I think that's the biggest deterrent.
And with point guards too, I mean, there's so many great ones. We were pretty much our first 16 we had locks because those guys were separating, and then after that we were like, well, we can throw in anybody really here. And Reggie, I think it was kind of a lack of really any spark and any noise last year. I mean, I had him ranked the lowest at 28 last year out of us. Ricky had him ranked the highest at 21. Well, Dave kind of in the middle at 24, but. Then again, I mean, I just didn't see. He doesn't do that much defensively for you. He really slowed down the offense for Detroit. And again, this is a young team that should have had a lot of promise. And I feel like Reggie was one big reason why they really slowed down.
I absolutely agree, because they went from a team, like you said, that great playoff performance. Yes, they didn't win, but they showed that they were on the right path. And into this season, now it's questioning. Well, we've heard Andre Drummond talks in trades. We've heard Reggie talks in trades. And KCP just left. So they went from a promising up and coming young team to what are we doing?
It's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Detroit Pistons. And before we get into the new arrivals here, I think we got 4 in this segment. I want to jump to one guy, and it's Tony Parker. He fell 4 spots here, and I know some people will be like, you got to give him respect.
The sponge is getting worn out.
Manu's the bar is soaked.
I see both of them in the pop system where he's going to use Tony Parker like a sponge too.
Well, Tony Parker, a guy that he played well in the playoffs. He played well throughout the season, but you look at the injury that happened. That was one reason why I completely tanked my rankings. I had him coming in a little bit above Reggie Jackson, coming in at 27. Dave had him at 27. Ricky had him at 28, so still around there. That injury, it just looked bad with his age. I don't know how he's going to be able to come back.
And especially for a guy who's known for his ability to get to the hole with I don't want to overly whatever, but the Euro step was him. He was one of the biggest guys contributing that to the game, and his impact on the court, his smoothness with ball handling, all of that scares me now, because now I'm like, dude, you're in your late 30s,
35-year-old,
you're not getting younger, and you're coming off of an injury. None of this adds up to a good ending for you. So I'm very concerned. I mean, he's still one of the best leaders, though. That's one of the things where it's it's intangibles is where I give him credit, and that doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but what he does for that team and that organization speaks volumes.
Yeah, and it's something where I think Tony Parker, he has a lot of respect in this room. I know we all respect Tony Parker, but it's something, you're 35 years old, coming off this series of an injury. I don't know how much to expect from you. And that's something that also plays into this. What's your expectation going into the year? How much can we expect from you? I think we'll get a little bit into that when we come to the rookies. Yeah. But none of those guys are here outside of Frank. So let's get to the newcomers here. Frank, obviously a huge newcomer. He's a guy that's very raw, though. Starting in New York, it's something that I think that's really going to slow him down. I think that's the reason why we have him at 30.
Well, and all the newcomers we have into these rankings, Malcolm Brogdon, Jamal Murray, Chris Dunn, and Frank, they all have either one thing or one kind of common area that they all have in common. When it comes to guys like Frank, Jamal, and Chris, they all have the thing in common where really I know Jamal's been there for more of a year, but this is the year where we're expecting Jamal to be the starting point guard for Denver, but for Chris and Frank, new point guard in a new scheme. Yeah. Chris Dunn coming over to the Chicago Bulls, where it killed me to put a Bulls point guard so low, but really I couldn't put him above anyone else. Him and Frank coming into new teams. Jamal Murray, it's well, they drafted you to be this, and we're hoping you can be the point guard. And then Brogdon, it's you were Rookie of the Year last year, but there were so many circumstances of how he won that, and can he contribute in that Bucks system yet again, and can he increase numbers, or will they be the same?
Well, I think that I don't think we're going to see a huge jump from it. I think that Malcolm Brogdon's going to stay around the same way because, I mean, again, he's a guy that's 25 years old, I think now, 24, 25 years old. I mean, he was a very old rookie last year, but he's a guy that really isn't going to develop too much. But the guy that we saw last year could be a very successful NBA player, a guy that's a great three-point shooter, a guy that's great defensively, a guy that's going to bring high energy, and he's very athletic. So it's a guy that, I see as, obviously he's going to be probably more of a shooting guard in the traditional sense because Giannis will be your point guard. He'll be handling the ball, but just because he is
he's
the smaller,
listed at the point guard position.
Yeah, I mean you're not going to put Chris Middleton there. You're not going to put Giannis there because Giannis is so damn big. It's just something where ultimately Brogdon's going to play out there. So he's not a game-changing point guard because he's not a point guard, but he is a very quality player, and that's why he's that high. And I think Brogdon's a guy that's going to be able to stay in the NBA, staying starting lineups because he's exactly what you want in an NBA player. He's a 3-and-D player. He's a guy that's going to stick around. And I think that's where most of these guys are. You look at Patrick Beverley, Ricky Rubio, Darren Collison. These are guys that have been able to stick around. I mean, there's guys that aren't really making noise here in this 30 through 21, but these are guys that are sticking around and are still able to make consistent contributions to a team, and hence why they're on an NBA roster.
And that's what I want to talk about is what's the similarity? We're talking Pat Beverly, Ricky Rubio,
New teams.
Chris. No, I'm saying and Chris Dunn.
A lot of guys have switched to new teams, but there's still
a lot of them are new teams, and a lot of them are defensive point guards. Guys not known to light up the scoreboard, but they're gonna give it back to you on that other half of the court. And I absolutely love Patrick Beverly, and I love what he's done for the Rockets, and now going out to the Clippers team. My only concern with him is he going to be their long-term answer? Probably not. He's a fantastic defensive player. He's a okay guy. But I don't know if I trust him running point for an entire game. They brought over Milos. That's where my money's at. But still, I know he's a quality player. He's a veteran. I look at Ricky Rubio, and the dude is just shy of a triple-double whenever he feels like it. It's just the question of, without that three-point shot, how much value do you contribute to this team? So I feel like he's held back by that one skill. But again, the defense is heavy, but as far as point guards are concerned, I feel like defense is almost it's not valued as much as a point guard as is in other positions.
Well, I think it should be, though, because if you have a guy like Pat Beverly on your team and you're going up against Steph Curry, then it's going to, at least hopefully limit Steph's damage. And that's why Chris Paul, when we get to Chris Paul, that's why he's so high. That's why he's been so high, is because he is that great defensively that he's able to take a guy like Steph Curry, take a guy like Russell Westbrook, and limit his damage from 30 points per game to a 25, 24 points per game.
And that's the thing. It's it turns it from stud to okay, you're still very good.
You're an all-star.
But when you think two-way player, I'm sorry, the majority for me goes to wings.
Yeah,
that's my default answer.
Like the Klay Thompson kind of players.
Yeah, Klay Thompson, Butler, Paul George,
the shooting guards.
all those kind of guys. So when I think point guard, it's interesting to see a lot of the defensive stoppers who are starters, they are ranked so lowly for us. But at the same time, it's what can they contribute to this team? And the one guy I'm looking for, Ricky mentioned, Chris Dunn. I'm curious to see because we were all so high on him coming out of college. And he stumbled coming out of the blocks last year when he got kind of thrown in the deep end after the early injury.
Let's be honest, though. The Thibodeau kind of offense and just how he does everything for a rookie who's not ready for it, that's a culture shock. If you're not ready for the kind of atmosphere that Coach Thibodeau goes, because he's a guy that we've always said he'll run you dry. He'll break your knees if he has to.
Well, that was a lot of crap that we got was because, we look back at when we were talking about the trade initially, when Chris Dunn came over and Zach LaVine, et cetera, when we were saying that he, in the minutes that he did get, he wasn't looking good. Well, people were like, well, he didn't get enough minutes. He wasn't starting. He was pushed down. And that's a lot what we hear with Tibbs rookies, that they don't get enough playing time. He doesn't play as rookies. He's going to trust other guys over him. So ultimately, I mean, I just look at this and I think that Chris Dunn, he does have a lot of potential, but he didn't show enough to be higher.
Are you giving him pretty much a pass on his rookie year at this point? Because we talked about him and Frank being 29 and 30. So basically we're saying, rookie and a guy who underperformed in his rookie year. We've got him at the bottom of the barrel.
I'm not expecting much from Frank because he is coming in raw. He's a guy that doesn't really have a developed shot yet.
He's coming into a shit situation in New York.
He's coming into a shit situation. So ultimately, I'm not expecting too much from Frank. So if I put him at 30 and he takes a 15, rank jump next year, I'm not going to be shocked. But with Chris Dunn, I think that the expectations aren't too high for him. Right. And I don't think that what we saw last year is going to change it too much. And if it does change, I see him maybe going up to like 20 or something like that. But it's not going to be something too high because, remember, this is a guy that's also very old, a very old rookie.
He came out late, yeah.
I mean, you look at guys on this list, guys like, I'm pretty sure, Brandon Knight, if he was on this list, he was on this list last year. I'm pretty sure Brandon Knight's younger than Chris Dunn. I mean, we talk about John Wall's battery mate and
Bradley
Beal. I'm pretty sure he's younger than Chris Dunn. I mean, you look at these guys on this list. Frank, I think, has like 5 years less than Chris Dunn.
True.
I mean, Chris Dunn is an old guy, and there's not that many expectations for him, both by his play last year and just the age that he has. So Chris Dunn, I think, is a guy that really needs to prove himself this year. And even when he proves himself, I don't think he's going to be taking that much of a jump because the expectations that I had for him last year are completely different than what I have for him this year. So ultimately, I think that there are guys that can rise. I think Jamal Murray being now slotted into this point guard spot. Nuggets fans are saying that he's going to have to fight for that spot, but ultimately that's who they want there, so that's why we put Jamal Murray there. But Jamal Murray, a guy that obviously we know his range. It's going to be interesting to see what he does, at least from a point guard standpoint. Can he be a guy that can move the ball when Jokic is not moving the ball and isn't the primary ball handler? Because that worked phenomenally for them.
I would say their offense just clicked in that second half of the season.
And I think one thing, too, you talked about the guys in common. Obviously, most of these guys have moved. Most of these guys have also are kind of defensive specialists. But you also kind of see these guys as the new era of positionless NBA, because you look at Malcolm Brogdon and Jamal Murray, those guys are more suited for the 2, but now they're slotted over to the 1 because they have guys like Jokic, Giannis Antetokounmpo that can be your
primary
one.
ball handlers without playing the guard role. And I think we are going to guards, wings, and bigs. Like, it's truly down to those 3, and even then, like, bigs we're seeing 6'8", 6'9" bigs. So like even then it's kind of questionable.
Well, and the thing I kind of look at with most of the guys, only because we talked about them, where I'll throw Pat Bev, Ricky Rubio, Frank, Chris, Jamal. This is kind of like the bracket of guys where it's like, show me what you got this year. Where the new guys, it's like, show me what you got. The older guys and the guys that we had last year, that's what I mean by that. Darren Collison, show me what you can do with Indiana. Reggie Jackson, show me what you can do coming off of injury. Ricky Rubio, show me what you can do in Utah without Gordon Hayward there, because he is now in Boston. So this is more of like a bracket of point guards also in this, where it's like, you know what? Show us what you can do. Show us why you should be ranked higher.
And it's something, too, with Rubio that I ranked him lower because Hayward's not going to be there. And he's not going to have a guy that's going to be able to score like he had with Karl-Anthony Towns, Andrew Wiggins, etc., around him to help his numbers. I think Ricky Rubio is still a great player, but I don't think he's going to have enough around him to make a noise. Real quick, we got 2 more questions for you. Last year we had Marco Carter-Williams, Jared Bayless, Darren Williams, Emmanuel Mudiay fall out of this list completely, and Derrick Rose as well, but Derrick Rose is way higher. Looking at this, are there any guys you're looking at this list that might not be on this list next year?
I think Collison is probably Parker because of age and injury. Like, I could see him retiring. I think Collison is edging on like whether he should still be a starter. I would probably look to see somebody else take over a role from him.
A youth movement taking out Collison pretty much.
And then the other guy is Pat Bev, because like I said, I think he won't be their long-term solution. I think that it's really weirdly Milos. Like, I'm going for a 30-year-old Euro to come in and steal his job.
I think I agree with you. I think Pat Bev, Darren Collison, Tony Parker, and then also I would throw in Reggie Jackson there too, because if he's
Reggie could be moved to a 6-man or to another team.
Yeah, if he's moved completely, we don't know what his position is going to be.
And those are the ones. I mean, Pat Bev because of Milos, Tony Parker because of retirement, and then I kind of want to throw Reggie Jackson out there just because of what you said, where it's like, if he has another bad season, bump you to the 6-man, we're going to find someone to replace you, although you've got 2 years on your contract.
That's the problem, is that contract then looks awful for other teams.
He's got 2 more years after this one for the Pistons.
And then out of this completely, who do you think is going to be the guy that we look back and like, why was this guy so low? Is there any of these guys, because obviously Chris Dunn's there, Frank's there, Jamal's there. You're thinking Brogdon's too low?
Brogdon's the only one for me out of there's 2 guys that I could see breaking out of this group, Brogdon and Murray.
I've got the wild card. I got the guy nobody's talked about, Elfrid Payton. Like, I weirdly enough think that he's a good player. Yeah, his basketball IQ at times has been questionable. Definitely won't argue that. But something for this Magic team is going to click, and I think that I see the chance that he can take that step forward out of these guys in this list. I think Brogdon, I'm in the boat with Sean on. He's probably he's closer to his top end now than most players are who just got drafted. Yeah. So I feel like great contributions in your first year. I think at best you're going to add a tiny little bit on top, but that's about what we're looking at.
And the thing, I mean, when Jabari comes back, he's going to be the fourth guy.
Yeah,
because Giannis is going to be there,
he's
Jabari's
a
going to
great
be there,
fit to the
Chris is going
system.
to be there. Yeah,
It's kind of like Danny Green is for the Spurs. You know,
And
he
when
came
I'm
up
saying
at
breakout, I'm saying like for a point guard,
Yep.
if he can break into the next group we're going to talk about.
Absolutely.
Of course, Brogdon's not going to be a guy who jumps into the
Brogdon's
top 10.
a top 10.
He's not going to be a top 10 point guard, but if he can jump into the 11 to 20 range.
Yeah, I mean, I had Elfrid Payton at 18, so I had Elfrid Payton already breaking in there. I think Elfrid Payton, you look at his last month of the season, he was phenomenal. And I think if he can find more consistency in his game, the Orlando Magic can find consistency to put around him. I think that he can be a guy
adding
that
the right
takes the
guys
next step
around
up.
him definitely helps.
And then obviously the easy one's Frank. I think Frank's definitely going to be a guy that can,
He's got
can
the
bust
most
out as well.
potential.
I say he won't be 30. Like no
Yeah.
matter what, when we end this year, I don't think we look back unless he's like
The kid's 19. He's going to move up. Also, I'll throw in Jamal Murray out there just because this is his first time. I don't think he's going to be a point guard per se. I don't know. He might not be even in this list next year.
Yeah.
He might be moved over to a shooting guard or something like that if they move Gary Harris or whatever they do with that. But I think Jamal Murray's going to be a guy that might float around. And I think that Jamal Murray, we see the potential with him. We see where he went the prior year in the 2015 draft, 2016 draft. I'm forgetting my years here. I'm getting my years messed up. But you see his ability to shoot. And I think that with his youth, I think that he's going to be able to take a big step up. Any final thoughts before we move on to 20 versus 11?
You were right. 2016, he was the 7th overall pick.
I knew it was. I keep wanting to say last year, but we just had a draft.
Yeah,
so
we did indeed.
It would be the 2016 draft. Anyways, but let's move on now. We're going to 20 through 11, and this is the part where we wanted to kill Ricky. So you guys are
We're going
probably.
to talk about my boy.
We're going to talk about.
My boy.
We're going to talk about a lot of people's boys. So let's jump
Zoe.
into it. 20 through 11, starting off this list, 20, Jeremy Lin of the Brooklyn Nets. Then Markelle Fultz of the Philadelphia 76ers coming in at 19. At 17, Dennis Smith Jr. of the Dallas Mavericks. At 16, Ricky's boy, Lonzo Ball. At 15, we have Drew Holiday of the New Orleans Pelicans. Of 14, we got Dennis Schroeder of the Atlanta Hawks. We got Jeff Teague, now of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Probably not of the Minnesota Timberwolves if this Kyrie talk keeps going through. Then we got George Hill as well of the Sacramento Kings. We got Eric Bledsoe of the Phoenix Suns. And rounding out this group, we got Goran Dragic of the Miami Heat. And boys, let's jump in to the men in the lower half, the rookies, Markelle Fultz, Dennis Smith Jr., and Lonzo Ball. I want to put this out there before everything. I had Markelle Fultz at 17, Dennis Smith Jr. at 20, and Lonzo Ball at 25. Ricky, where'd you have Lonzo Ball?
I had Lonzo Ball in the top 10. Had him at 10.
Who'd you have him above?
Rookie of the year.
Who'd you have?
Had him above Kemba.
And Goran Dragic,
And
Jeff Teague,
Well, here's the thing.
Eric
it was either going
Bledsoe,
to be
George Hill.
if there was anyone that Lonzo was going to knock out in my top 10, it was going to be Kemba Walker because I look at it and Lonzo Ball, to me, is he going to average a triple-double like he did in Summer League?
No.
However,
Look at Chris Dunn last year.
He is going to be a player that I have already said when Dave and I did the podcast when you were at Pitchfork.
Yep.
I'm calling it. He's Rookie of the Year this year. He's going to be phenomenal for the Lakers. I just got all the hype in the world for this guy, and I put him in my
Phenomenal.
top 10.
Yeah, there's
Put him in the
hype
top
in being.
10.
You don't think you're being you
No.
don't think you're being ridiculous here.
No,
You don't.
not at all.
You think at the end of the season, Lonzo Ball is going to be the 10th best point guard in the NBA?
I think there's a possibility of that happening.
Do you think it's going to happen?
Yes. If
What-
he wins
what-
Rookie of the Year, then he could be top 10.
And that's his
Yeah.
floor. That's his. I'm sorry. That's his
That's
ceiling,
ceiling.
right?
The ceiling is the roof in this case.
The ceiling is top 10 point guard by the end of the year.
For this year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
mean-
where's the floor?
The floor.
What's a bad season for Lonzo Ball? 20?
A bad season
I thought you
is
said 8.
where he is now. No, where he is now, about 18 to 20 is a terrible season. I don't see Lonzo Ball being I don't see any of these rookies falling out of this tier. They can only this is where they are, right back to back to back with each other, and basically it's this season. How well are you going to do, and how high are you going to go up? These are all guys that can kind of climb when we get to next year.
But you know what's interesting about that
What's
is
that?
the order that they ended up in here.
Backwards ass order. Lonzo Ball, who went 2, is higher than Markelle Fultz, who went 1, and Dennis Smith is above Markelle Fultz, and
It's
Smith
about what
went,
team they're
9th?
on, though. It's about what team they're on,
Yeah,
too.
and I would say the team that has the best chance out of all of these teams are the Philadelphia 76ers, yet Markelle Fultz is ranked
Best
lower.
chance to win more games, yes.
I know, but I'm just saying. I just find it peculiar.
Yep.
So why did you, because you also had Markelle Fultz lower than both Dennis Smith and Lonzo
I did.
Ball. Why was that your thought process as well?
For
to
me,
take some heat off Ricky.
Yeah, sure. Throw it at me.
Top 10, baby.
For me, Markelle Fultz, well, he was the number 1 pick overall. He's going to a team where he will have a smaller role than both of these other guys who got drafted.
He'll be the third option instead of Lonzo, who I mean will be the third.
I think Lonzo is pretty much the number 2 and bordering on.
So you have him above Brandon Ingram.
Look, when it comes,
Brook Lopez.
It's pretty much Brook Lopez and Lonzo will be playing pick and roll, pick and pop.
But the ball
that's their entire game
But
play.
the ball runs through Lonzo,
But
too.
the ball runs through Lonzo. Lonzo's the sole man for that offense. And when we look at the 76ers, we've got Ben Simmons, who is point forward, / point guard, / point whatever we want.
And when he's on the bench, Markelle Fultz will probably.
You have Markelle
whenever his
Fultz,
game.
you have Dario, who will also take off for him. And you have Joel Embiid, who's just going to get the most amount of focus while on the court.
But would you agree that saying that Markelle Fultz would probably be the third option on that team? And actually, scoring-wise, I'd probably say
No,
he's
because
second.
JJ.
Would you? So
would-
when you're talking scoring options,
When I'm talking
where are you
scoring,
ranking
it's
those
Joel
guys?
Embiid, it's JJ Redick.
So you're putting
Then
putting
it's Ben
JJ above
Simmons.
Markelle Fultz?
For scoring?
Scoring-wise.
Yeah.
You don't think Markelle Fultz, with his ability to score inside and outside,
I think-
and his ability with his speed to drive to the lane, isn't going to get
He
overlooked by
he'll
JJ
probably have
Redick?
more points per game. I just think that JJ will do it better because he's more efficient with
So you think
three-point shooter.
so JJ will be more efficient?
Yeah, I think
I don't
JJ's
think-
probably got fish with like 16 points. Markelle might have 17 or 18.
Okay.
Like that's probably my realistic expectation. But
When
the
I'm
problem
saying
is,
scoring option,
Yeah.
like who are they going to go to?
it's Joel Embiid.
Okay, Joel Embiid,
that's
and then
number
who's
one.
behind him? Are they going to go to
Ja.
JJ?
No,
Who are they going to?
I just had to throw that in there. It's Fultz is probably 3 in my mind. Like I still think Ben Simmons is going to soak up the majority of ball handling time. And the thing with Fultz is like we've only seen him play in a system where he is the only viable option. So now going to a team where he is surrounded by number 1, number 2, number 3 overall picks, like that's a pretty big change. So his ego is going to have to take a step, and then he has to figure out where he fits into the system because this isn't his system. This is Ben Simmons' system. This is for Joel Embiid. This is not for Markelle Fultz to be the guy in. So that's my biggest thing is like him going in there. I don't know how big of a role offensively he'll have compared to Alonzo Ball, where it is purely on him because he is, per Magic Johnson, the future of this franchise.
So the thought process is that the fact that Lonzo Ball and Dennis Smith Jr. are at least going to be the ball handlers. Their expectations
Exactly.
are higher, so
Their
that's why you have them
usage will
ranked
be
higher.
much higher than Markelle Fultz.
So that's just the usage plays into a factor, and that's why
absolutely
they'll be
for
ranked higher.
me.
Well,
Absolutely.
And, I mean, how you look at where they are just in overall. Lonzo, Dennis Smith, Fultz. It kind of goes into the 2 tiers that we've kind of mentioned, where the first tier is what you just said. Because Ball and because Smith will have the ball in their hands more times than Markelle Fultz will, that's where more of the, and I'm using
on.
air quotes here for a point guard,
But
hype.
the thing is yes, the assist numbers might not be there for Markelle Fultz because he will not
I'm
be
not talking-
controlling the offense.
I'm not talking assist numbers. I'm just saying like when the ball is in your hands, you can dictate whether it's you who scores, whether it's this guy who scores. You're the one that everything's running through. When Markelle Fultz doesn't have the ball, it's going to be a lot of he's going to have the ball when Ben Simmons isn't on the floor, but if they're on the floor at the same time, it's going to be a lot of, well, I don't have control over this. You have control, and I have to wait for you to pass me the
But Ben
ball.
Simmons is still a fantastic passer. He's
He
a
is.
fantastic playmaker. That's why he went number 1 overall. That's why he is the primary ball handler, at least we're thought process. We're thinking that he's going
yeah.
to be the primary ball handler heading into the season
But when
because he
you're-
can get
but
it
when
to
you're
the other players.
When you're the third scoring option, then on top of it, what Dave said.
I don't
Ben
think he's the
Sim-
third scoring option.
Ben
I think he's the
Simmons-
second scoring option. And if Embiid goes down, then he's the number 1 scoring
Okay,
option.
Ben. If
Let's not say things we can't
I'm
take
just
back.
I'm,
if
I'll knock
Embiid
down
goes
wood.
down, everything changes.
Dude has played 33 games
Say.
in 3 years.
But
I know.
The other layer I was going to go with, out of the 2 that are going to be the main ball handlers, who's got the more hype right now? And it's Lonzo
I think
Ball.
Summer League definitely contributed
Yeah.
to these rankings because we only got to watch a little bit of Markelle Fultz, and we got to watch Dennis Smith Jr. ball out. We got to watch Lonzo.
Well, Markelle
Eventually.
Markelle Fultz
saying
fit
that
in perfectly.
You're
I'm
saying
saying
the
there's
fact
some
that
recency.
Lonzo Ball is 10 is because
No,
of Summer
that's
League?
Ricky being Ricky, man. That's
I like
his
Lonzo
own case.
Ball, Rookie of the Year.
I think the point
I'm gonna
is
start making shirts.
usage factors in heavily.
LeVar's already got that.
Yeah, he's already got that copyrighted.
Anyways, I disagree with you guys here. I just think that Markelle Fultz, he's going to be, the second scoring option behind Joel Embiid. And even Joel Embiid's going to be able to, he's not going to have the ball every single time going up and down the court.
I mean,
Ben
like-
Simmons is still going to take shots, but these guys are still fantastic scorers in their own right. Markelle Fultz is a great scorer. He can create on his own, and he can work off ball. I mean, this kid is fantastic, and that's why he went number 1 overall.
I'm not saying he's not.
He might not be bringing the ball up every single time, but I don't think that's going to affect him. Look at Malcolm Brogdon. We saw his efficiency in that role. Markelle Fultz is a better scorer than Malcolm Brogdon. Brogdon's ranked 23 on this list,
and why
Brogdon's the 4th option when Jabari comes back. And I even think with Markelle Fultz, being probably the 2nd option in my mind, I think that you look at this, Chris Middleton, I think is going to be, if we're comparing the Bucks here, Chris Middleton is going to be like the Markelle Fultz, or J.J. Redick's going to be the Malcolm Brogdon, where they're going to go to J.J. for the open shots. I mean, you look at that team when the Clippers, J.J. was the 4th option because Chris Paul was still above him, Blake was still above him, DeAndre was still above him. I think J.J.'s still going to be the guy that's going to be a spot-up shooter. He's going to be really efficient at that. But I still think Markelle, with his natural scoring ability, he's still going to get his usage, and he's still going to be efficient because those shots are going to be open because he's playing with Joel Embiid, because he's playing with J.J. Redick, because he's playing with Ben Simmons.
And here's the thing I like, though, about our top 3 before you kind of go in. Well, these 3 guys, is I love that they're back-to-back-to-back.
Well,
because
that was because we got lucky and I put Lonzo at 25.
The thing I love about that, though, is that it kind of shows hey, this is right now based on us 3, this is where we rank these rookies. But yeah, they're in this middle tier. After the season, let's see where they go, where they spread out with each other.
We're saying 3 guys who haven't played a single minute of NBA time are better than 10 players.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Well, I mean, come on. Any of the guys we talked about in segment 1, would you say that these 3 aren't better than?
And real quick,
I think potential.
I'm not comparing these 2, but you guys know who's number 1.
Yep.
Look at what that guy's role became and how he is still number 1. Right. I just think that Markelle Fultz, with his potential, with his scoring ability, it will still overcome Lonzo and Dennis Smith. But
honestly, one last thing I want to make is you were trying to compare him to like the Bucks system, but honestly, it's he and Ben Simmons are Kyrie and LeBron James, lesser versions of. Like, to be completely honest, I can see them running similar offensive schemes. They won't be because, of course, that's not Brent Brown's style, but like that's exactly how I envision that relationship will work out. Yeah. The big difference being that they have, the 7-footer who's the most dominant player.
And
also,
on the court. Ben Simmons isn't the scorer like LeBron James is.
Right.
So that's completely different as well, too. Anyways, let's get away from the rookies here. One guy that I think is very interesting, I don't think gets enough credit, to be honest with you, is Dennis Schroeder. Coming in at 15 here. I had Schroeder at 12. I just look at Schroeder. Again, expectations plays into this. With Paul Millsap leaving, I think that a lot of the scoring front is going to fall on Schroeder, and I think he's going to rise to the occasion. You look at his splits last year, he's a phenomenal shooter, getting up closer to 40% from 3. I just think that his ability to create is also just not really focused on enough. I think Atlanta's going to take a little bit of a dip with Dwight and Paul Millsap
and
leaving.
Hardaway.
And Hardaway.
They lost all of...
They did, and I think it's going to fall a lot on Schroeder, and I think it's going to either be a sink or swim season for him. But I think that Schroeder's ability, at least, I don't know if the Hawks are going to be a playoff team, but I think that Schroeder's going to be the best player on that team, just because you look at what's around him.
I'd say
there's not much around him.
It's either him or Kent Bazemore, and I'm hoping it's Schroeder because, Bazemore's okay. He's okay.
He can develop.
But this is clearly a team rebuilding, so it's Schroeder's team to lead, and I agree with you. I think his usage goes up, but my question is, has he made it out of the shadow of his predecessor? Is Jeff Teague still a better point guard than him? In my mind, I still think so, but like you said, the usage and him going to a Timberwolves team where he'll have a much smaller role kind of leads into that discussion, I think.
Well, tell me if I'm wrong, but does Jeff Teague resemble like mayonnaise to you? Like, he's just kind of there. Like, Jeff Teague doesn't excite me. You know what I'm saying?
I thought you were saying like he looked like a jar of mayonnaise.
No. Jeff Teague just kind of, he's just like, all right, that's Jeff Teague. Like, Jeff Teague doesn't do anything like spectacular to me. Like, you look at him, he's like, oh yeah, he put up 15 points per game, 7.8 assists, 4 rebounds a game too. But then again, he's playing with Paul George, he's playing with Miles Turner.
I think that's because he played for the ultimate, I'm going to say, mayonnaise state in Indiana. I mean, Indiana last year was like, oh, Indiana did that? All right, like, whatever. Like, that's, I think, why
straight up disrespect for that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Bulls fan. What do you expect? But
next week, we're ranking all 50 states.
the thing where it came
coming
in
for you,
with
Maryland.
Hawaii, number 1, best vacation state. However,
you've never been.
No, I've never been. However, the big state stat that pushed out to me with Schroeder, and this is when it came in compared to Bledsoe, Teague, and Goran Dragic, was the value added. I looked at the per and then I looked at the value added, And when you look at Schroeder, I know you can say, well, Ricky, this could also be what team he's on. 192 compared to Bledsoe that's at 310, Goran who's at 324, and then you had Jeff Teague who's at 326. So those three players adding almost 1/3 more value.
And just so people at home know what's this value added stat?
The value added stat is basically their estimated number of points a player adds to the team's total season above a replacement player. So that's, for instance, the 12th man on the roster. They are adding 1/3 more points than Dennis Schroeder is adding.
And again, I think it comes into expectations because now Schroeder, Jeff Teague was third option on the Pacers last year. Was third option probably, in Atlanta too. I mean, even then that's kind of iffy. He might have been fourth.
Yep.
But looking at this, I think that Dennis Schroeder might going to be able. He's again, like I said, sink or swim season. This is a guy who's 23 years old, still developing. I like the flashes that I saw.
Yeah.
He might jump up to a 20-point-per-game guy and maybe sit around six assists per game, but I think he might be able to be more efficient, jump up to like maybe 47% from the field. And sorry, I misspoke. He wasn't shooting around 39% from three. He was shooting around 34%.
Right.
That might take an uptick to like 36% because he's been always really, increasing his shot and not only the amount of threes he takes, but also the percentage he's been hitting. So I think that Dennis Schroeder is a guy that we really got to look out for. I think that he's a guy that's super underrated on our list, and that's why I had him at 12. Ends up at 15, not too far of a drop, but ultimately moved up 4 points from last year.
Also, another stat that kind of played in why I had him a little lower than everyone was the true shooting percentage of 53%. It's just a little lower than the Bledsoes, the Dragic, even Drew Holiday, who I didn't mention.
I'm just curious to see, shooting. Like you said, with his gutted, rebuilding Hawks team, like his usage is going to go through the roof. So I wouldn't be surprised, like you said, if he puts up like 27 and 6. I really do think he's going to be stat stuffing a little bit, not a bad way, but like he's going to have to compete in this league. Meanwhile, I had Teague above him still, but I think Teague is going to have a much lesser role on that team now with Jimmy Butler, Cat, Wiggins, and Taj. Like that's a team that he just needs to go in and, like you said, be the mayonnaise.
Yeah, I mean, you just kind of bring the sandwich together. You got the meat, the meats in Karl Anthony Towns, the cheese of Jimmy Butler. I don't know, maybe the mustard of Andrew Wiggins. I don't know.
Tomato?
I kind of wish
the cat's the bread, the meat's Jimmy, the cheese is Wiggins, the mustard, adding a little spice to it, is Taj Gibson. You got to put the mayonnaise and Jeff Teague in there.
I kind of wish his name was Patty, like Patty Mills. So we could just say, be the Patty mayonnaise.
Anyways,
oh my God.
Doug reference for you.
One guy that's a new addition to this is Eric Bledsoe. Brandon Knight was a starter last year, at least going into the season.
Flip-flopping.
Yeah, so Eric Bledsoe, as you call him, Mini Bron.
Bron. He's baby Bron.
Looking at him coming in at 12. Thoughts on Eric Bledsoe? What is he going to do with the Suns? Is he going to be able to justify this? Is he going to be able to stay healthy?
If he's still on the Suns to start the season,
Kyrie can throw a huge wrench into this if he gets traded.
It could be interesting, but we're going with the assumption that he will be on the Suns
to start the season.
And I think should he stay healthy, he contributes across the board. I know I talk about him probably more than anybody else on this group, but like he's a player who can give you rebounds, assists. He gets in there defensively. He is a good scorer. He's got decent court vision. Like the thing for me with him is just like, because now I'm expecting him to be like ready by prime. The rest of these guys in this team are so much younger, so he needs to be the leader out there, and that's something where we haven't seen him do. Last year, obviously, we got to watch a lot out of, the names get Tyler Ulis.
Yep.
And like he looks so good, and that's what leads like a lot of questions in my mind. But like, look, Bledsoe is a solid contributor, and he's above average for point guards. And point guard is one of the most loaded positions from top to bottom. Like I think they go 20 deep to any point guard. Like toss me one of those, and I'm good. So I think,
honestly, when we're talking like 16 up, I mean those are all quality players. Drew Holiday and up, I would say Schroeder, Teague, Hill, Bledsoe, Dragic. You can really flip those on any basis on really what you're looking for in a player. Bledsoe's a guy that can be your number one option when you're rebuilding and still be a guy that can be a top point guard in the league.
I think the thing I'm curious to see is how he works with Booker now that Booker's had that last month of time to purely develop and be the man on the team. So now we're emerging with Bledsoe and Booker side by side as your backcourt. That's where I want to see how that relationship continues to grow.
And adding Josh Jackson, seeing Chris develop, and also your boy Bender.
Dragon Bender.
There were three guys here that I was like, I didn't know how to put them at 12, 13, 12, 13, and 14. And that was Goran Dragic, Jeff Teague, and then Eric Bledsoe. Because here's kind of like my mindset of it. Like when you look at the stats, obviously Bledsoe, even just looking at it for Goran Dragic, he has better points, better assists, better rebounds. But then when I looked at he's got a better per than that, but the other two, true shooting is better, and the other two add more value. The value was like 310 for Bledsoe, 324 for Dragic, and then 326 for Teague. I know the thing with Teague is new team, and that's the one where I'm like, okay, maybe I could switch Teague and Bledsoe and put Bledsoe above Teague where I had it where Teague is above. But to me, it comes where it's Dragic and Bledsoe. Those are the two where I'm like, I could switch it depending on the day, whether it's raining or sunny. I can put Bledsoe one, and then the next day I could put Dragic the other, and I can kind of flip them in and out.
I gotcha. Yeah, I mean, the one thing with Dragic, too, I mean, once D-Wade left, I mean, he did have to take more of a scoring brunt, as they would say. And you look at, his numbers kind of matched up more to 2013-2014 was with the Suns.
Plus, that team went on a heat. They went on a heat streak. For
I say that
nice
30 and 11 run.
That
nice
Dion Waiters.
He went on a heat streak.
A heat
nice
streak.
Waiters County.
Yeah, Waiters County. I ultimately think that Dragic. I mean, you look at Dragic, Teague, Hill, Schroeder, Drew Holiday. I mean, they're guys that can really add to the team, but they're not in that level where they are MVP, all-star type caliber players. Which the guys that we'll get into when we hit 10 through 1. But any of these guys, do you think they're underrated in any sort of the way when you look at this? I know that Dragic might have a case because he does have that scoring asset, the scoring upside. You look at Bledsoe, obviously he's playing with a worse team. If he's traded to a different team like the Cavs, how much can he really affect the team? Are there any guys that you're looking at that are underrated in this 20 through 11?
Maybe a little Jay Lynn, only because he plays for the Nuts.
Well, he also is
I
injured.
had him a little lower only because, he was injured, but also he plays for the Nets. So it's like, how often do I see Jay Lynn stat stuff on ESPN? No, you don't focus on the Nets.
You got the number 5 biggest Nets fan in the world
right here.
Look, I'm just saying when
Wearing his
Jalen
black and white today.
When Jalen healthy, the Nets looked pretty good, and they were clicking on a couple cylinders. I'm not saying they were a playoff team by any means, but I'm saying they put together a respectable team, and that definitely not a top or a bottom 5 team in the league. So I like him. I'm just, again, it's another injury, another concern, and I'm just hitting that point where I don't know that he'll ever be healthy for a full season. So while he is a starter now, and we're assuming he's a starter, D'Lo to the 2, like that's a very fluid situation where I think throughout the year we might see some change there.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens because, again, the Nets are still building up. You bring in Allen Crabbe, you have Karis LeVert, you have Jeremy Lin, you have D'Angelo Russell. What's going to happen? Is Jalen going to go to the bench? Is D'Angelo going to move over to the point guard? Because he is naturally a point guard.
Yeah, we've seen Jalen be an excellent 6-man too. So I mean, like, it's not a bad thing. I think that connotation's kind of been taken away at this point, where it's like, you're not a starter for us. You're just a 6-man. But like, he is absolutely phenomenal at being a 6-man, and his effort during the playoffs 2 seasons ago made a huge difference for them. So honestly, like, it's maybe a slight at Jeremy Lin. I just think that like his future's in such question right now that I feel comfortable where he's at. For me, the guy is George Hill, because it's what do we expect out of him on a new team, on a young Kings team who... I'm
excited for him.
That's the one where it's like, I think he has got a lot of upside because he's never kind of been in that position before.
But then again, he's 31 years old.
Yeah.
And you saw what he did last year with a good Utah Jazz team. He was able to put up 16.9 points per game, 4 assists per game, 3.4 rebounds per game, but he was still very efficient.
That's
what helped him.
That's what I
so
love.
Will his efficiency take a drop because he is on a worse team? He's not getting those open looks. He's not playing with Rudy Gobert, Gordon Hayward, these guys. So do you think that playing with Buddy Hield, taking down a step, that's going to hurt him?
You're saying Buddy Hield, Willie Cauley-Stein not equal to Gobert and Hayward?
No.
I don't even know what you're talking about. No, I think it's a great fit for him, to be honest with you. I think we're going to see equal or better stats from him this year, because unless they decide that they're going to like pull the plug and go full tank mode again and be like, hey, De'Aaron Fox is getting your minutes because we said so. Like, that's the only situation where I could see it. But like, I think being a 31-year-old point guard and getting your chance to run this young team and be able to set the tone for them, you have a fantastic head coach, and now the organization's looking like they're turning the corner with a ton of young talent. So I think it's a perfect situation for him.
And I think one thing too with George Hill, I think he might be a guy that might fall out in some ways, not maybe fall out completely of the rankings next year, but because De'Aaron Fox is there,
right?
I don't know where he's going to be and if he's going to be here in Sacramento or if he's going to be a completely different place. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with George Hill. But I mean, looking at all these guys, these are guys that are quality starters, and then rookies that have a lot of hype to them, have a lot of potential. Ultimately, it's going to be interesting to see because you have guys like Dennis Schroeder, who's completely taking over a team now with all the moves. You have Dennis Smith, Lonzo Ball, helping build up a team. You have Markelle Fultz joining the process. Jeremy Lin being on a terrible Brooklyn team, but being a quality NBA player. If any of these players, looking at this list, who do you think is the most likely to get moved out of these players, whether it's in Bledsoe for a Kyrie deal, Teague for a Kyrie deal? Are there any guys that are for sure you think are going to be on the move and could help a different team that might be having a point guard like a Reggie Jackson or something like that?
I want to say Jeff Teague because of and this is only because of listening to the Herd today. He had Chris Mullinix on, and he was talking about how
Chris Mannix.
Mannix. Thank you.
You combined Chris Mullen and Chris Mannix.
I keep doing that with names, but Mannix was on from the Vertical, and he was saying how there's a possibility that Wiggins and Teague, they'd have to wait until December 15th, but that might be a better deal than the Bledsoe deal. So I would say, if I'm picking out of the two, I'd say Teague would be the one that would be moved and on a new team next year.
I think, weirdly enough, the guy that might be moved is Goran Dragic.
You tried to sell us on this last year before they won that heater.
I did.
Now why now?
No, Dave, that
sell it again. Because Kyrie.
Now? Because
Kyrie.
But are you willing to
take Kyrie?
Are you giving up Justice Winslow and Dragic?
I don't know exactly what the package is. I haven't worked it out.
That's the early rumor. Is it's a combo of those two guys. I don't know. Are you ready to go find Winslow?
And if they start tanking, if they start doing poorly, if they don't put it together, Dragic is a nice piece to be moved.
I like Dragic and Waiters backcourt. I like Whiteside. I think they've got something going.
What if Waiters, starts eating Twinkies again?
True.
I mean, what if Hassan Whiteside gets
injured? Are we
reuniting
Kyrie and Waiters again? Because that worked out so great the first time.
Hey, this is a different Deion Waiters. He's changed. I'm just throwing Goran Dragic. I don't want to be, following the Eric Bledsoe train.
All right.
Eric Bledsoe is probably the most recent though, because he is.
Dragic and Winslow for Kyrie works out in the trade machine.
I bet it does.
It works out.
Anyways, but let's move on now to the top 10 of these point guard rankings. Let's run through them. Kemba Walker coming in at 10, Mike Conley coming in at 9, Kyle Lowry coming in at 8, Damian Lillard coming in at 7, coming in at 6 is Kyrie Irving, coming in at 5, Isaiah Thomas. Coming in at 4, Chris Paul. Coming in at 3, John Wall. Coming in at 2, Russell Westbrook. And coming in at number 1, Steph Curry. So let's talk about the top real quick because Russell Westbrook, even though he won the MVP, is not the number 1 point guard. Dave, you put him at number 1. Make the case for him.
I may have put him at number 1.
Dave likes triple-doubles.
The man had the most triple-doubles in a season in NBA history, something that hasn't been done. He outdid Oscar Robertson.
But this isn't about Big O. This isn't about last season. This is going into this season.
And where do you judge last season? He was that good last season with crap around him, and now you get Paul George in there.
Go look at what the Warriors did in the finals.
Yeah.
I understand.
Steph Curry was a big part of that.
Steph Curry's good.
He's really good.
He is good.
He's good at basketball.
I'm just saying the argument is there because Russell Westbrook contributes more to his team than Steph Curry does. Everything that Steph Curry does...
He was the team last year.
Yeah. It might as well have been the Oklahoma City.
Who would you rather have leading that team?
Steph Curry.
Who would you rather have? Do
you think Steph Curry's more successful on that team than Russell Westbrook? Because I'd argue against that.
What do you mean?
I think that if you literally removed Westbrook from that team, put Steph Curry on that team.
Steph Curry's never going to average a triple-double because he doesn't grab
I don't
boards.
even say average triple-double.
Are we putting Steph Curry on the Thunder or Westbrook on the Warriors?
No, Thunder.
Okay.
Just him on the Thunder.
I don't think he wins a championship, but I don't think he becomes.
Do you think they win as many games? Do you think that he puts up close to a stat line? No.
I would say you look at his 2015, 2016 season, 2014, 2015 season, and he's still the greatest three-point shooter in NBA history.
Yeah, yeah, I absolutely agree to that. I'm just saying Russell Westbrook's contributions to his team are greater than what Steph Curry contributes to his team. That, in my mind,
are we talking about this current Warriors or just in general? Because Curry's a great leader still.
Yeah, he's great.
Steph Curry's
so are the other 3 All-Stars on the team?
Yeah, Steph Curry.
Which means his role
was able to get a contract. The contract that he just got.
Yep.
Don't see Russell Westbrook getting that money.
He literally just got that money.
Did he get more than Steph Curry?
I don't know the numbers.
Which one?
I just know they offered
Westbrook to Curry.
Steph got more because it was the Supermax.
Yeah.
So Russ didn't have the chance to sign the Supermax.
Yeah.
So I bet if Russ had the chance to sign the Supermax, he would have signed the fucking Supermax. Come on. And you would have signed him the Supermax because it's Russell Westbrook.
Exactly.
We're picking hairs here, but still, looking at Steph, you look at what he was able to do even before Kevin Durant came. He was a 2-time MVP. He's the best three-point shooter in the league.
One of those MVPs was, unanimous, too. You got to just add a little...
One of them was unanimous. There you go. Russ's wasn't unanimous.
I knew he was thinking
Russ's wasn't unanimous, and he averaged triple-double.
Yep.
You know who's actually the player in this top 10 that I think needs to be the focal point?
Is it Mike Conley?
No, it's not Mike Conley, even though he just stayed the same.
Pretty sure it's
it's
Mike
Isaiah
Conley.
Thomas. Because
I was not expecting that.
Well, he's the hot. You look at last year's rankings this year. He rises 5 spots to be our 5th overall player, and it's kind of a player. I had him at 3. However, if you've heard me talk about Isaiah Thomas, he's not going to win a championship.
He's also not the best player.
Boston should probably trade him
the best player on his team.
because you're not going to win a championship with him on there.
He's not even the best point guard in the East.
But the type of play that we saw, like Dave said, how do you grade? He meant this season, but he said last season.
Yeah.
How do you grade this season? You have to go with last season.
Yeah.
And last season, Isaiah Thomas, I know he got hurt at the end and was out for for the rest of that Cleveland series, but he played phenomenal. I mean, look at Damian Lillard. He was a guy we were all high on last year.
Yeah.
Fell 3 spots this year. He's still in the top 10, but he's not as high. Is Isaiah Thomas going to be that same kind of guy? Last season, now he rises, and then he falls again this year.
I think he's probably going to fall a little bit, but then again, you also have to look at how weak the East got. So, I mean, that's going to
the
play
East
in
lost a
factor
couple
as well.
All-Stars.
Do I think he's going to be able to put up 28 points per game? No, he just or 29 really. I mean, he averaged 28.9, so we'll round it up to 29. But then again, Gordon Hayward came over, so that might take away, scoring. It's going to take away scoring from Isaiah Thomas. And Isaiah Thomas isn't that much of a playmaker. He isn't a guy that's going to have the ball in his hands. A lot of those points came off of off of screens. I mean, he's going to have the ball in his hands.
It was purely off of screens. He dominated.
Obviously, he has the ball in his hands. Obviously, he brings the ball up, but most of his scoring is made off of screens. Yes, he drives a little bit too, but I mean, you look at Isaiah Thomas, he isn't a guy like a John Wall, Chris Paul. I mean,
John Wall is now our 3rd point guard.
Well, and that's one thing. You had Isaiah Thomas over John Wall, so why was that?
Well, for me, I looked at it, and for that, it was basically Isaiah Thomas led his team to the number 1 overall seed, where John Wall and that team, it was kind of the Celtics did better, so Isaiah Thomas's team
Gets
did
the
better than
credit.
John Wall. However, I will say I was wrong about John Wall heading into last year. I didn't think the Wizards were going to be a top 4 playoff team heading into last season. However, they were, and they did get to the playoffs, and they were in the top 4. And that really, for me, the guy who I see got bumped in mine the most is the guy who we have at 4, Chris Paul, because of Isaiah Thomas, because of John Wall, and me even having Kyrie 1 slot ahead of Chris Paul.
Well, and looking at Chris Paul too, I mean, taking all the. Well, Dave, do you want to jump in on the Isaiah Thomas, John Wall thing?
The one last thing for Isaiah Thomas, I agree, John Wall's the better point guard. I think Sean and I are on the same page on that. But Isaiah Thomas, the thing that even the stat line showed us was his 4th quarter impact. For a guy who lives off of his pure quickness, beating people off the screens and getting to the hoop and creating contact, I know he flops like crazy, but still, he gets the calls, and that's all that matters at the end of the day.
And he steps over the line taking foul shots.
And he also cheats on his foul shots. Not enough disrespect possible. But look, his 4th quarter was just magical every single time, because no matter what the score was, you're like, they got a shot, unless it was against Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I want to point out here too is you look at this. I mean, we had a lot of differences. You had Russ over Steph. You had Isaiah Thomas over John Wall. I had Kyrie over Isaiah Thomas. So I mean, we have obviously similar differences here. You look at Isaiah Thomas, I think he's going to take a dip in his production, obviously because Gordon Hayward comes over.
Right.
But also, I just look at Kyrie Irving and then also the possibility of him being traded, and I still look at Kyrie as one of the most dangerous scorers, one of the best ball handlers in the NBA, playing with LeBron James. I still think that Kyrie Irving is a better player. You also look at Isaiah Thomas defensively. He's not that great. But then again, when we're talking about all these guys, we're splitting hairs between these people. So, I mean, honestly, is there any clear one over the other that you would look at and say, this is where the talent really starts to separate in the top 10?
No, and I think it's clear of, yes, 1 and 2 are clear, and I'm going to use air quotes because, yes, there are going to be the minority that say, you know what, I'm going to put Russell Westbrook above Steph Curry.
Yep.
But I think the majority of people are going to go Steph, Russ.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then after that, it's a crapshoot. Some people are going to like Isaiah Thomas. Some are going to like John Wall. Some will like Kyrie. Some will like Chris Paul. There might be some people that say, hey, I like Kyle Lowry more than any of those and might put him higher because of what he brought to
And they're from
his
Toronto.
Raptors team.
Yeah, they're from Toronto.
He's from the North. But
No, they are. Anyone who would put him that high.
the thing I wanted to kind of look at in that sense is if I look back to last year I had, yet again, Steph and Russ. But who was my third? Kyrie Irving. Because it might have been because they were coming off of the championship and he hit the final shot in that. But I kind of feel like these trade talks or these trade rumors, trade demands have kind of hurt Kyrie in a sense of, yeah, you play with LeBron James, so of course you don't have to do everything. In a sense of, if you put Kyrie on his own, let's say on a Phoenix, let's say on a Sacramento, on a Brooklyn, is he going to be the third best point guard behind Steph and Russ?
I still think so.
If you put him on Brooklyn, let's say Brooklyn, because to me they are the lowest of the low in this league.
Ouch.
When it comes to talent-wise, that's nothing against you. That's just being honest.
I disagree.
Is he a is he the top third point guard behind Steph and Russ?
I think he's like, I still have him bouncing between like 6, I think between 6 and 3, and I don't think that he can get above John. In my mind, John Wall's there because he's a two-way player.
Yeah.
John Wall gives you...
John Wall's also a better facilitator than Kyrie Irving.
Excellent facilitator, great basketball IQ, lightning quick, and just amazingly good court vision. Kyrie doesn't play defense. Like, he half-asses defense. That's the best you'll get. It's better than Isaiah Thomas for joke around purely because he's taller. He has a longer wingspan. He takes up more space. Like, that's our reasoning. It's terrible to joke about. But
and one thing too, I mean, you look at Kyrie and you look at John Wall and Damian Lillard, guys that aren't on really talented teams. I mean, obviously Bradley Beal's there, CJ McCollum's there, but you look at those teams. I mean, ultimately, John Wall and Damian Lillard are the best players on those teams, and it's not even close. Where you look at Chris Paul, he's got James Harden. You look at Kyrie Irving, he's got LeBron James. You look at Isaiah Thomas, he's got Gordon Hayward. You look at Russ obviously the complete outlier here. Well, now you have Paul George.
He has Paul George.
Now
Yeah,
Paul George. And before that, you even had Kevin Durant. And then you look at Steph, he's got 19 Hall of Famers on his team. So
Who's that?
ultimately, I just think that Kyrie will still be up there even if you put him on a Brooklyn. If you put him on a floundering team like Phoenix or whoever you want to use as an example, I still think he'd be higher than Kyle Lowry, Kemba Walker, just because.
To me, that separation just kind of happens at like Kyle Lowry's level. Like I feel like
I would say the Damian Lillard, Mike Conley. That's where you have that separation between the top 10, where the guys below Damian Lillard, those guys are never going to be in conversation for MVP. They're just fantastic.
I would agree with you there. Yeah, I think Dame is kind of the cutoff because there's something special about him.
Yeah.
And we've watched it for the last couple of years, and I wish his team was healthier so that series would have been actually, more enjoyable, more exciting.
Well, here's the thing you mentioned how Dame and John Wall are alike because it's Dame and CJ, but also you have John Wall and Bradley Beal. However, maybe it's just me. I look at it, and if you said, who's the guy who is like they don't need the number 2 more than the other one, John Wall to me is the one where I can take Bradley Beal away and put someone else in, and it's someone else of like okay quality. It's not going to be Bradley Beal, but it's someone, and John Wall can still be John Wall. With Damian Lillard, I kind of feel like some of the Trailblazers, it's like, man, would this team be a little bit less wins? Would it be a little bit less off if he didn't have CJ being the Robin next to him?
I don't know about that. I think because, obviously we really don't know because CJ came in like right when LaMarcus left. So we really don't know what he would do by his own or by himself because we've seen what John Wall was able to do without Bradley Beal because we obviously saw that Bradley Beal's been injured like pretty much most of his career. But looking at those two, I think that Dame is clearly a better scorer than John Wall. So, they're completely two different players in the sense that John Wall can do everything for you. Dame can put up 30 a night and consistently do that. So I think they're different players where Dame doesn't need that Robin next to him, where if you put a phenomenal Robin next to John Wall, that's when John
That just
Wall
makes it even better.
ascends to the next level. Yeah. So I think that's why you also see John Wall higher than Dame right now, because that's why John Wall took up 3 spots, Dame fell 3 spots, was because you saw the addition of Bradley Beal, what that added to John Wall.
A healthy Bradley Beal.
I say healthy Bradley Beal, the growth of Otto Porter, and consistency of their starting unit was one of the best in the league. Their bench was the worst.
Yeah.
I mean, John Wall's impact when he's off the floor, the plus minus is ridiculous to look at. So again, it's his impact across the whole team, and I think that's kind of one of those interesting things to look at because we talked about before Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan, kind of that pairing, because it seems like a lot of these guards have excellent backcourts together, and we got to watch the Raptors, first without Lowry, then without DeRozan, and kind of see how does this play out if one or the other's missing. And the argument was there still is as efficient, as good of a shooter as DeMar was, Lowry's still more valuable to the team in a lot of people's minds. So I think the problem with him is his age and their window, and that's where it just kind of sucks for Lowry because I think he's a good player. He's a weird aberration in the NBA. He got better, past 25, which normally we see players usually, The prime area is 25 to 27. We see them kind of hit, this is where I'm topping out at. And he just kept getting better after that. So it's amazing what he's done. But now the concern is I don't know that he's got anything left because he's hit post prime almost in my mind.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, how this all plays out, because then again, we look at John Wall. What's going to happen if Bradley Beal goes down? What's going to happen with Chris Paul, playing now next to James Harden?
That one I think is most interesting because, I mean, you went from me I was fighting for James Harden to be the point guard, the number 1 point guard last year, I think, and this year it's okay, now we've got Chris Paul there, who obviously we know what he was able to do with a big and DeAndre Jordan, Blake Griffin, working with them too. So him now being in the Mike D'Antoni offense, I think he's got a huge smile on his face. It's going to be perfect for him.
So do you think that Chris Paul can actually take a jump up? Because he fell down 1 spot.
I think he benefits from it, but I don't know, the problem there is just I don't know how much the points will matter because it is D'Antoni offense. I do expect them to, again, put up 115 a night, 120. I don't know if that almost waters down the case.
Let's be honest. Chris Paul fell this year because of me and Dave. Last year, how we had it was you guys had him at 3, I had him at 4.
Yep.
This year, Sean kept him at 3. Dave, you actually put him at 4. I bumped him down to 6. Mainly because of, in mine, how he got bumped down to 6 was Isaiah and John Wall jumped up to 3-4. So obviously you're going to fall from your spot when 2 guys bump in.
Why did you take Kyrie over Chris Paul?
That was the one where it was, to me, back-to-back. And with Chris Paul and Kyrie, yes, Chris Paul is better defensively than Kyrie.
By a mile.
But if you told me, Ricky, you got to pick one of these point guards, kind of like the situation you said. You've got same situation, same team for each one. Who do you want your point guard to be? I want Kyrie Irving, because if I want, games on the line and I need a final shot, I'd go with Kyrie over Chris Paul.
Yeah, I mean,
slightly.
He's got it. He's proven it, and
Chris Paul hit a big shot once.
Paul.
That's why I said slightly.
But what round does Chris Paul get stuck on?
The second round.
Yeah.
But is that his fault, or is that the fact that Blake Griffin is a walking injury? Same with DeAndre Jordan. And Chris Paul also gets banged up.
Look, I love Chris Paul. I will just say I've been saying the same shit over, and I know you guys are sick of it, but 20-20-0. 20 points, 20 assists, 0 turnovers.
Why do you take John Wall
insane.
over Chris Paul? Because I put Chris Paul 3. You put John Wall above Chris Paul.
I think that John Wall has
He's
another.
younger.
Well,
You could also say
it's the age thing.
Is it because
it
he's
feels like
more
the easy
flashy?
way out? But I think no. I don't even want to say flashy. I think
'Cause,
it's the way he works with his team.
Because Kyrie and John Wall would be, to me, more flashy than Chris Paul.
I think for me, it's the way he works within his team because I don't know how Chris Paul is going to work with Houston. I mean, on paper, this should work perfectly. He gets to be a spot-up three-point shooter, an excellent facilitator, and this is all about just chucking up threes all day and working with your big man on high-efficiency shots down low. On paper, it works. I'm a little bit afraid of that. I'm curious to see how the James Harden experiment, bouncing from point guard back not. Are they going to split time with the ball in their hands? That's where I have a question. It's nothing against Chris Paul. It's more of a fit on his team. John Wall's staying, again, like I said, one of the best starting units in the league, and nothing's changing. They're keeping everything. They're just going to continue to get better. Bradley Beal, one of the most efficient twos in the game, and I think John Wall can still continue to get better. Like, it's crazy to say about him. Like, he's not done growing.
Yeah, and let's get a little bit out of the top 7 because I understand where you're coming from. Again, like we said, we're nitpicking.
Yeah,
with
I mean,
this top
again,
7.
these are hairs, you know.
And let's jump into Kyle Lowry, Mike Conley, and Kemba Walker because we haven't given him any love at all. Mike Conley probably is the most underrated player, I would say. Like,
he's a pretty good player. I think that's an accurate description.
He's a good player.
He's pretty good.
I mean, you look at what he does in the playoffs. You look at what he did last year. He's a guy that puts up 20 a night, and he's also able to put together great teams. Is able to bring his team together, and he's a guy that is not going to hurt your team in any facet of the court. He's a guy that's going to be able to score inside. He's going to be a guy that scores from the outside. He's an efficient free throw shooter. He's a good defender. He's going to be able to create for his team. I mean, I look at Mike Conley. He does everything.
You know what I find funny with him though?
What?
Last year, coming into 2016, we all had him at 9. Now he stays the same this year.
We all had him at 9.
But we didn't. You had him at 8. I kept him at 9. Dave bumped him down to 10. But he stayed at 9. He stayed at 9. But you guys went
Mr. Consistency,
and I went right in the same.
Why'd you put Kemba Walker over him?
I think Kemba is more of a I just like the way Kemba plays. His play style statistically might not be better than Mike Conley, but I think what he gives to his
Conley's
team.
on a better team. You could also take that into effect as well.
But I think
do more.
Conley's the guy I never see him being able to take a game over.
Yeah.
Like, Kemba Walker is someone who, that's his thing. Like, he can take it to the extra gear. He has that, I want to say star power. I really do. Because in my mind, like, Mike Conley's not a star. It's nothing against him. Mm-hmm. He's just a very good player.
Memphis.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's one downside to Kemba and Conley is that they're playing in Charlotte and Memphis. Those are media powerhouses there.
No, absolutely true. But I think Kemba has the star quality. He has star power, and he has that star potential in his game to just absolutely take over games, become a dominant force. And I don't see that in Mike Conley. I think that he, like you said, there's no negative to Mike Conley. He just doesn't have that extra it factor to his game that makes him better than other players. Like you said, he's never going to win an MVP. He's never going to compete for one. Is he ever going to take his team deep in the playoffs because it's on his shoulders? No. But I could see Kemba Walker doing that. I can see Kemba being that guy who wills his team to victories.
But he needs a better team around him.
I have no argument there.
Yeah. And then looking at a guy like Kyle Lowry, a guy that has a decent team around him, a team in Toronto that's been consistently making the playoffs. Obviously, Kyle Lowry's been hurt, but he had one of his best years this year, but he didn't really take a jump up, actually fell down one spot. Is there anything with Kyle Lowry that you want to see this year that is going to put him up higher and probably put him into that Damian Lillard category, or do you think he's never going to take that because he doesn't have that flashiness to him?
I think it's not, in that question, it's not what I want to see from Kyle Lowry, it's what I want to see from the Raptors overall. Because they were a team 2 years ago, we're like, man, they're trying to compete with the Cavaliers, and now it seems like that has shifted from the Raptors to the Celtics being that team that is going to compete, will be the one that people are like, man, if anyone's going to knock off the Cavs, I guess this is our best spot. So with me, I don't look at Kyle Lowry individually. I look more at that entire team, and I want to see more from the entire Raptor squad than just Kyle Lowry.
I mean, outside DeMar DeRozan, there isn't really one. I mean, you have Serge Ibaka, you have Jonas Valanciunas, you have
that man gets disrespected all day.
Yeah, but he's not that good though.
I know. I just think it's funny. He's always like scapegoat. He's 31.
Yeah,
Dude,
I think
31.
that's the biggest thing.
I mean, at the end of the day, you look at these point guards. Chris Paul's the oldest, but then it's down to him. So Chris Paul's a transcendent player. Chris Paul was like the point guard. When you ask for a definition of point guard, you could just point to a picture of Chris Paul and be like, that guy.
Chris Paul's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, exactly.
That guy.
And again, Kyle Lowry started late in his career when he hit his prime. So yeah, at 31, he's still playing at an excellent level, but like there's no extra gear for him. He is, and that's fine. The problem is, like Ricky said, like he's not going to compete for a championship.
And we asked this,
not right now.
We asked this question with the other ones. Who is most likely to fall out? Would it be Kyle Lowry because of his age?
I think so. The only other guy who could fall out is possibly Mike Conley.
I'd say Kemba Walker.
And why is that? Because of the team around him?
Basically because of, I get the whole player that he's been where, like Dave said, he could put a team on his back. But if he doesn't have that team to put on his back, I could see somebody, maybe even one of the rookies, even someone from the
Just
next
tell us which
bracket
rookie. Which
is
rookie
gonna
would you
bounce
put?
in. Either Dennis Smith or Ball or even Fultz.
I mean,
all three of them
you did
could
have Ball
potentially
at
be
10
top
already.
10. You had Ball higher than Walker.
I mean, he's the one that out of the three, I would say that's your best bet at being a top 10 player at the end of this year. But I could see any of those rookies jumping. If Bledsoe has a phenomenal year, if Dragic has a phenomenal year, I would look at Kemba being the one where you're on the cusp, and he might fall to 11, but that's still falling out.
Yeah, I think the guy that's going to take the biggest jump, or can take the biggest jump, is Kemba Walker. I just disagree with you completely. I think that he can take that jump. He can go either way.
I don't know how jump or fall.
I don't know how much Dwight Howard's going to help him, but I think that still he can be helped. And I think that he's still going to be able to really push himself forward. I think the guy that Kyle Lowry, I think he can definitely fall out. Also Isaiah Thomas. I look at Isaiah Thomas, and I don't know exactly what his role is going to be and how he's going to really thrive in the Celtics role, and I don't think it's anything against
Isaiah
Isaiah
his
Thomas.
last year on the Celtics too.
Yeah, I don't think it's any on his contract. We don't know if Danny is going to bring him back or not.
They can trade him.
We don't know what's going to
They could trade
happen.
him.
We don't know what's going to happen. But with Isaiah Thomas, he is getting older, and his game, maybe they find a way to stop him. I'm not saying Isaiah Thomas will, but I'm just saying I just want to throw another guy out there, and I'll throw Isaiah Thomas out there because you look at Kyrie. He's still young. Dame's still young.
Is there any chance anybody gets into the top two discussion though? Like, do you
Top
feel
two?
like
No.
Yeah, do you feel like
John Wall.
that's? Do you think John Wall can jump up on the same level of Brody and Steph Curry?
I think so.
I
don't think he's athletic as Russell Westbrook, but he's more tame than Russ. And
He's
I think
so
that he can,
quick, too.
I think that John Wall can be a guy that can really hone his game and really limit the turnovers, limit everything else, make
And
his team
defensively,
better.
he's phenomenal, too.
Make his team better, be great defensively, and he can overtake Russ. I don't think he's ever going to put up 32
I
like
think
Russ
if he-
did, average a triple-double like Russ did, but I don't think Russ is doing that this year.
I think because the numbers fall, if anything, it might be a case where next year, instead of Steph and Westbrook, it might be at the best case for Wall. It might be Steph or Wall.
I mean, the biggest gap between all of our numbers here is the 2 to 3 because right now Russ has 88 points, John Wall has 82, 6-point difference there, and then besides that, it's a 3-point difference.
Steph and Russ either 1 or 2.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like I'm saying, like the determination between like 3 through 7, that's tougher than what we thought 1 through 2, and we both had Russ and Steph. I'm just saying, if anyone can, it's John Wall because of his athletic ability. Obviously, it's not up to the same level as Russ, but I think that he does have probably the most athleticism out of all of these guys, in the top 10. And you look at John Wall, I just think that he does have that characteristic to become that guy to overtake it. I think we saw it this year, playing with a healthy Bradley Beal, seeing the improvement of Otto Porter. I think that he can be a guy that could take that jump if anyone's going to take that jump. So any other guys we want to mention in the top 10?
No, not really.
All right,
I think we hit them all.
It looks like it's going to wrap it up. Mike Conley is a mystery to me.
Mr. Consistency.
Mr. Consistency staying
He's
at
a pretty
number
good
9.
player.
He's a pretty good player. We also talked about Mayonnaise, Jeff Teague, and we talked about our favorite player in Malcolm Brogdon. We named a fucking award after him.
Yep.
So there are a lot of guys that we talked about. Tell us your rankings down in the comments below. If you want to do 1 through 10, do 1 through 10. If you want to do 1 through 20, do 1 through 20. If you want to do 1 through 30, do 1 through 30. We're not expecting anything, but definitely
but if you do, you're the real MVP.
you are the real MVP. So definitely leave your comments down in the comments section below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. If you're listening on Blog Talk Radio, thank you so much for the download. Thank you for listening to us on there. Anyways, boys, we will see you next week, boys and girls, and children of all ages. We'll see you next week. For Dave Oster, for Ricky Widmer, I'm Sean Anderson. We'll see you next time.